Hear footsteps.
Mm-hmm. You made it. Right on time.
Yeah, just minimize it or.
Want me to minimize
Either
it?
way is fine, yeah.
I know what.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Sunbury Council meeting. It is December 29th at 6:30 p.m. Would you please join me in a moment of silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Joe St. John.
Here.
Damon Capel.
Here.
Greg Elliott.
Here.
Tim Ghost.
Here.
David Martin.
Here.
Cindy Cooper. Here. 6 present.
In a meeting on December 15th in council chambers, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Second.
Second by Damon Capel. Discussion. Roll call.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Damon Capel.
Yes.
Tim Ghost.
Yes.
Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. David Martin.
Yes.
McShades.
We also had a meeting on December 20th of this year, a joint session with the county commissioners. And I'd like to make a motion for approval on the minutes.
Second.
Second by Damon Capel. Discussion. I did want to say it was a really nice event. Thanks to those of you who spoke, and then I think it was just a positive experience, and I think it shows that we're all working towards the same, which is a nice touch. Roll call.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Damon Capel.
Yes.
Tim Ghost.
Yes.
Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. David Martin.
Yes.
McShades.
We're on to the visitor section of the meeting, and we do not have any visitors here this evening. It is December 29th. We're going to move on to committee reports, and we'll do a brief committee report. Any updates, Mrs. Cooper?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Martin? Excuse me, Mr. Martin?
No committee reports.
Mr. Capel?
Nothing here.
Mr. Jess?
Nothing here, sir.
Mr. Elliott?
Just we had a planning and zoning committee meeting this past Monday, reviewing the preliminary approval for, I forget the new subdivision's name.
Eagle Creek.
Eagle Creek, thank you. I think there were 7 variances in total. There were some questions around the density. They did a great job with the green space, but more to come on with Eagle Creek, and the changes that we requested. A couple revisions we wanted to see, or layouts we wanted to see of the plots and the houses that fit on them, and how the setbacks are going to sit. So more to come before it comes to council.
Thank you. Any other committee updates?
Nope.
All right, and just to add on to that, we did have 2 public hearings, one of which was the zoning code updates that did pass unanimously, and the next step is for that to come to council. Will that be a public hearing for council? And it will be at our, not the first meeting, it'll be, will we make the?
It'll be February.
February.
Because there's a 30-day notice period.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll have that in about a month or so. And just to add on to what Greg had mentioned, we did hear a rezoning application for Eagle Creek. It's a parcel that is directly west of I-71. It's single family homes. Pulte is the developer. It's in Olentangy School District, and what they did a really nice job of, to Greg's point, is aggregating open space. And so what it does when you look at it, it's not as spread out, but the open space is very contiguous and large. Their open space, I think they were around 32%, and well over half of that was usable open space, a lot of trails and walking areas. We've asked them, we're going to ask them to put a north-south connector from their trail network. I talked to Steve about that. We'll get that back to the developer before next time, because even though the parcels on the north and south side are in Berkshire Township, we want to try to, put it to the property line. So if the next development comes in, regardless of municipality or township, we create a network. So we're doing that. And then to Greg's point, that probably the largest amount of discussion was around, and I think they would have done themselves a favor if they just would have provided some images and examples of what the houses actually look like within each lot. The lot sizes are probably somewhere in between what my neighborhood would be, Sunbury Mills, and maybe like a Sunbury Meadows section 16, which is closest to Route 3 in the communities of Sunbury. In between those two, they're 130 foot deep. I think they're
60 to 65 wide. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot.
And they're asking for variances on front setback, which is not abnormal. I think our front setback is 40 feet. Most developments are 25. We're asking for reductions in setbacks on the side yards. It's not uncommon. And then also in the backyard, probably in between a Sunbury Meadows 16 or the patio homes in the communities of Sunbury and like a Price farm. So somewhere in between there. And we hear this a lot, that developers are telling us what their customers want. They want large houses on small lots. That's not, I don't hear that exact message. I sometimes hear, we want large houses on large lots. So we really got hung up on encroachment into the rear setback and what actually is permitted in the rear yard setback for the variance. And what we've come to is it's unconditioned room. So if you were putting up a screened porch or a deck, those are probably the two most applicable examples, or a paver patio or something. It's not like you're going to build your house within 25 foot of the property line.
We had that issue come up a while back where people wanted a swimming pool in the backyard. And by the time they put their porch and their patio and the swimming pool, there wasn't any undeveloped space in the backyard at all.
Right.
And that was kind of a go around kind of thing to try and come to a reasonable resolution with that.
It's good use case. So they tabled that, and the developer was not adversarial at all. They were listening to the feedback, and we asked for overhead examples of what the different footprints of the product they're looking to sell with, encroaching into the 25 foot setback. That's the shortest way I can say that. Administrator report. Anything tonight, Steve?
No, thanks, Mayor. I'll just mention, we'll have a new employee, Wesley Hirschberger, who is a Sunbury resident, starting in the wastewater department right after the first of the year. That'll get us to 3 of 4, and we've had a couple good candidates come in just today. We've been advertising the position on Facebook, and it's an interesting kind of mix of people that you get off of Facebook. It's not exactly targeted geographically, but then we do get some local folks. So there's a couple more I'm going to provide to him. I didn't take a picture of it, but the retaining wall is 95% in, and it's a safe situation again there. Looks good, looks solid. And that's it, unless you have some questions. I just kind of did an abbreviated report this week. So,
Anything for Mr. Piles? Thank you, Mr. Piles. No engineers report tonight, and no police report either. We're on the resolutions, no third readings, no second readings. We do have a first reading, a resolution approving the execution of a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and declaring an emergency. Does this require action?
I don't think it does.
not really. I think you could have 2 readings on it without it being a problem.
Yeah.
We just received notification within the last 2 weeks of the award, so I think we're fine. We'll be meeting next week, so.
Good deal. And that's all for resolutions. We are on to ordinances, third readings. Ordinance number 2021.49 will remain tabled. Just to follow up on this one, we should have a draft NCA petition and covenant document, I'm hoping by next week, where you'll be able to read through, and we'll have Mr. Bream or legal counsel summarize the high points of that. Mr. Bream, do you have anything you want to add on to the NCA documentation that ties back to the ordinance 2021.49, the rezoning for the ravines?
No, that was the reason that it was tabled. We're working on an NCA agreement with the developer. We are getting very close. Had communications today with both sides, development side and our side. We do have NCA counsel assisting us with it, and we're close. And as you stated, Mayor, I think we're hopeful to have something for you next Wednesday.
Great, thank you. Ordinance number 2021.59. This is a third reading, an ordinance approving the commercial and industrial site plan and building application of Larry Mormon Investments LLC for construction of building additions to an existing industrial site warehouse located at 720 Kintner Parkway and declaring an emergency. I don't know that we need the emergency language on this. There's been no request that I'm aware of from Mr. Mormon to do it an emergency. Does anybody feel differently?
No.
Okay, then it will remove the emergency language, and I'll make a motion for approval.
And go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, Mayor, let's do a motion to remove the emergency language, vote on that, and then go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to remove the emergency language from ordinance 2021.59.
I'll second.
Second by Greg Elliott. Discussion. Roll call.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Tim Goes.
Yes.
Damon Campbell.
Yes.
Lee Cooper. Yes. David Martin.
Yes.
6 yeas.
I'd like to make a motion on the amended ordinance 2021.59.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Elliott. Discussion.
Well, I just really quickly, we did put Mr. Mormon and his team through it in planning and zoning. So if he's listening, or if they do go back and hear this, I do hope they move forward with this. I think it'll be good business for the village or the city, excuse me. So I hope, even though we put him through it, I do hope he can make this work for his business.
I agree. Yeah, there were concessions on both sides, and I think it was kind of the classic example of where we really try to work with developers. And in this case, I believe the zoning commission did a really good job. There was 3 or 4 meetings in a row.
Yeah.
We met with them in length. Roll call.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Tim Goes.
Yes.
Damon Campbell.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. David Martin.
Yes.
6 yeas.
All right, we're on to second readings. It's ordinance number 2021.01, fourth amended, an ordinance amending the 2021 annual appropriations and declaring an emergency. And I believe we do need an emergency on this to button up the budget in the last few days of the year.
Motion to suspend the rules.
A motion by Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by
everyone.
Cindy Cooper. Discussion? Roll call.
David Martin.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Tim Goes.
Yes.
Damon Campbell.
Yes.
6 yeas.
Motion on the emergency.
Motion on emergency number 2021.01,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cooper. Discussion? Roll call.
David Martin.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Tim Goes.
Yes.
Damon Campbell.
Yes.
6 yeas.
Motion on ordinance number 2021.01, fourth amended.
Motion on the ordinance, Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mrs. Cooper. Discussion? Roll call.
David Martin.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. Greg Elliott.
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Tim Goes.
Yes.
Damon Campbell.
Yes.
6 yeas.
All right, we're on to ordinance 2021.60, an ordinance approving the construction improvement plan sets for street, storm, water, and lighting and sanitary sewer improvements for Price Pond Section 1 This is a read only. This will be the third reading that comes up next week. I wanted to hit on a couple items here. We mentioned this in our last meeting. The plans that would be that tie into this ordinance are extensive, and if you haven't had a chance to look at them, please do it. They're extensive in terms of the streets and the sanitary improvements for the entire section 1. The section 1 of Price Farms is pretty expansive. It's from the entire, let's say, from Golf Course Road to Millstone Court. And there's been significant amount of work that's already taken place for that. One item that I wanted to hit on really quickly on this is we met with Pulte to discuss, among other things, road improvements on Cheshire Road, and Golf Course Road.
Golf Course Road, yeah.
And we also met to discuss the tree clearing. There was some preemptive, let me use the word unapproved, because it was not approved yet, tree clearing that happened for the trail component within the legacy Price Woods. And it's not that we didn't expect the developer to put in a trail. That was part of the development agreement. What happened is they did it preemptively before we had approved it. Our goal, as you probably remember, I asked Mr. Parkinson to keep a very close eye on this because it was going to be sensitive. They went in and based on lines on a page, as we often hear from our engineers, not schematic drawings, the tree clearing firm was directed by EMH&T, who was directed by Pulte, to go in and clear the streets. And so what the end effect is, or what we didn't have the opportunity to do, is subjectively walk through the woods and try to create a path that was the least impactful on existing trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pulte, I think, is fairly upset with their engineer, the tree clearing firm, because they didn't necessarily want to do it at this part of the project. That's just adding more burden onto a project that cost burden that still is yet to have any houses coming out of the ground, so they have no revenue coming in. But by next week, we expect to have some, I'll say either, we're gonna propose that they do something to make it right. And I don't know what that is exactly yet. I talked to a few of you about this. I'm gonna actually walk through the woods myself to figure out if we're gonna do buffering or pine trees or cash and lieu or something. Because they want this passed, and we want to make sure that they understand that by them doing some of the work before it got passed, there is an impact. Fair?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, we're on to ordinance number 2021.61, second reading, an ordinance approving and editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Sunbury, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. And these are typically making sure that our ordinances are in line with state and federal laws. Mr. Green, do you want to add anything in here?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we have a codified ordinance book. If someone were to look up the laws of Sunbury in our codified book, they see not only what you passed, but they see the state laws that are codified that apply within the village limits. So as the General Assembly makes updates to the state laws, our codifiers go through and make sure that our codified book is up to date. As when you make changes to our local ordinances, our codifiers update our codified ordinance book. So it's really just bringing our book of laws, so to speak, current, and we do it annually. So this was a second reading. If you want to wait and do a third reading next time, you can, or you can approve it tonight. Either way, it doesn't really matter.
You may have a strong inclination to pass this evening. Okay. No more second readings. We're on to first readings of which we have.
I'm sorry, really quick on this. Similar to the other ordinance, do we need to remove the emergency language or just leave it?
On 2021.61?
Yes.
I would, on this one, Greg, I would just assume you leave it. I mean, to the extent you take action to pass it, I don't see any reason to allow the 30 days. The 30 days is for a referendum period. To be honest, I don't even know what would happen if somebody tried to referendum you to say, well, don't update your ordinance book. So in this case, I think we could probably leave it.
Okay.
Will it be as so involved as somebody going through and changing the word village to the word city throughout?
That's a good question. Those updates should be made, but I'm not sure, Dave. We'll have to double check that. We can do that within the next week and make sure those were made.
All right.
Thank you. All right, we have no first readings. We're on to new and unfinished business. I did want to follow up on the big one, that school resource officer agreement. We did have communication with the school's sheriff's office in between whenever our last meeting was, I think on the 15th and today. And I just wanted to read off a communication that Deputy Chief Wade had sent to Superintendent Hamburg, myself, Jeremy Buskirk. And one of the main questions I think was around Highland Souders. I can't remember who raised that, but
I did.
Yeah.
We wanted to find out like what our authority was and were we able to do things in the school. That I would say there's two kind of tracks. One, regarding Highland Souders Elementary School, the only school outside the jurisdiction of Sunbury, the research we have done reflects that the memorandum of understanding with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office, which we have joint overlap services, along with the school's memorandum of understanding, our agreement with the schools would address any official business, which is quoted in the school resource officer agreement, in conducting within the school. So in other words, if you think of the scope of what the school resource officer is there to do, I mean, one of the things that they do is they educate. One of the things they do is they enforce school policy, and they have a presence. They engage with the kids. Those are some of the things. The only point of contention would be on criminal offenses that develop on that site, and where the MOU with the schools has a component where we would only intervene if schools asked us to. In this case, Sunbury PD would be required to contact Delaware County Sheriff's Office for criminal charges, criminal investigation, or proactive enforcement. Basic intervention of in-progress criminal activity would be covered under existing Ohio law and the memorandums of understanding. That's the short version. So if that's clear enough for you, I would like to make a motion to approve the agreement. It would still need approved by the school board, which they're anticipating to do in their first meeting. I think it's the second week in January.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we've got a motion by Joe St. John and a second by Dave Martin. Discussion. What I will say
When
is
is this effective? January 3rd?
The effective date, I believe we're going to do retroactively back to January 1st. What I was going to hit on here is there's a component of traffic mitigation that we need to, we're going to address whether there's an agreement or not. Okay, we're going to partner with the schools that moving traffic through Miller Drive, 36, 37, as the high school opens is a priority just as much for us as it is for them. What we have a handshake agreement with the schools on is we're going to do what we're going to do as part of the SRO agreement. They're going to do what they're going to do from a mediation agreement standpoint where they agreed to pay for it. And in this buffer period between when the schools agree to the school resource officer agreement, we aren't going to be going on site on their schools. All we're going to be doing is the traffic mitigation, and then, you know, back to our neck of the woods for the remainder of the day. Is that as clear as mud?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's doing the right thing. All the while we're moving towards getting this agreement executed towards the end of the fiscal year for us. Roll call.
Joe St. John?
Yes.
David Martin?
Yes.
Cindy Cooper?
Yes.
Greg Elliott?
Yes.
Tim Goes?
Yes.
David Kaplan?
Yes.
6 yeas.
Good deal. Where are we at? All right, we are going to, I'm not going to go into a couple of these things. We're about ready to go into executive session. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session per Ohio Revised Code 121.22 subsection G1 to consider the appointment employment dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and Ohio Revised Code 121.22, subsection G2, to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, the sale of property, competitive bidding, or the sale or other disposition of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit use of property in accordance with section 505.10 of the revised code if premature disclosure of information would give unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest. That was my motion. Second by Damon Capel. Discussion.
It's wordy, doesn't he?
We're going to ask Mr. Piles, Mrs. Belcher, and Mr. Breen, as well as individual applicants for the council positions to be included. What we will do once we do a roll call here is we're going to set up an order of operations. I'll say that now in terms of the order of candidates. We have Rick Ryba, who is attending virtually. And then we have Greg Elliott, Marie Neff, and John Rumney in that order. And that order was selected at random earlier today. It was handed to me by Mr. Piles, and I think he and some administrative officials selected randomly earlier today. We do expect to come out of the executive session. It may be a little while. We have a few issues to discuss other than the applicant process. And we will most likely be taking action afterwards. With that said, did we get a second? Second by Mr. Capel. Roll call?
Joe St. John,
Yes.
Damon Capel,
Yes.
Jim Goes,
Yes.
Greg Elliott,
Yes.
Cindy Cooper. Yes. David Martin,
Yes.
McShane.